A temporary truce in Gaza is officially underway as of 5 a.m. this morning in a deal made between the Israeli government and Hamas.
The four-day ceasefire will see 50 Israelis returned, with the first 13 women and children freed at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, with as many as 150 Palestinian prisoners to be released in exchange. Now, these are live pictures from the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt, where the first trucks carrying desperately needed aid have been seen crossing into the enclave.
200 aid trucks will be entering Gaza every day. Now, Gershon Baskin, a hostage negotiator and advisor on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process, joins us now from Jerusalem. Gershon, it's taken 7 weeks to get here. Tell us how significant this moment is that the ceasefire is now underway.
It's quite significant. The two major aims of this war for the Israelis is to return all the Israeli hostages and to, of course, eradicate Hamas's ability to govern the territory called the Gaza Strip and continue to threaten Israel. This is the first step toward the achievement of those goals, with the return of the first 50 hostages, with an open-ended possibility of including more hostages on day 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, until all the civilian hostages are returned. It's the first day that Israelis can smile a little bit since October 7th.
And how fragile is this? Just before the ceasefire came into effect this morning, there were sounds of rocket fire, of mortar fire this morning. I mean, we talked earlier as well about this 3 for 1, so 50 Israelis for 150 Palestinians, 7,000 Palestinians held in prisons. Hamas clearly wants this ceasefire to continue. I understand the deal on the table is for every 10 Israelis that are released, there'll be one more day of a ceasefire. But these are very fragile times, aren't they?
They certainly are. Just a single gunman on either side could break the ceasefire and lead to an explosion that would stop the deal. But both sides, as you mentioned, are interested in this deal taking place. There isn't really an alternative way to get the hostages home and to enable both warring parties to have a break, to have a breather. They've been at it for 7 weeks in the field, fighting each other. Of course, in Gaza, they've been bombarded heavily by the Israeli Air Force, but ground troops are also struggling in the daily attempt to each side survive and win their victory. It's literally bloody, a bloodbath down there. And a break is good for everyone. I don't believe that this is a long-term truce or the end of the war. Israel will not rest until Hamas is no longer able to govern that territory. So it will pick up after the opportunities for bringing back hostages is exhausted, and then the war will resume. I think that Hamas will be left with tens of Israeli soldiers as hostages. Negotiations will begin on the release of what Hamas is demanding, the 7,200 Palestinian prisoners in Israel. That's very unlikely to happen. I can't foresee any Israeli government accepting to release more than 600 people who are sitting on life sentences for killing Israelis being released in this deal. So we're probably going to see military operations going in search and rescue of hostages after the war resumes.
Gershon, can I talk to you about the logistics of today? 4 p.m. local time, 2 p.m. UK time. We are expecting to see the first group of hostages being released. How does that process unfold?
Well, there's a 6-hour Israeli ceasing of flying drones over Gaza. During that time, Hamas will organize and locate the hostages that are being released today. I am assuming from Hamas's previous behavior that we will see 3, 4, 5, 6 convoys of identical vehicles leaving from different locations in the southern part of the Gaza Strip, heading to the Rafah crossing to Egypt. At the crossing, there will be international Red Cross personnel who will check the hostages, their identity, see if they need medical care. They'll be transferred to the Egyptian side. The Egyptian intelligence is organizing there. Additional or the same international Red Cross personnel will cross with them to the Egyptian side, and then they'll be turned over to the Israeli side of the border, where I assume there'll be ambulances and helicopters ready to take the hostages. They will be taken probably to an Israeli military base. And then those who need medical care, I believe that they'll all be taken to a hospital. There's a children's hospital in Israel where they'll all be taken, and that's where they'll meet their families. At the same time, the International Red Cross will be checking the Palestinian prisoners that are being released today. They are all being gathered from 2 or 3 prisons into one prison near Ramallah. From there, they will be released to the Red Cross, who will check their identity, and then they will cross the checkpoint at Beitunia, which is near Ramallah, into the West Bank.
And just in terms of that, you made an interesting comment saying this isn't the end of the war as far as Israel is concerned. The director of Al-Shifa Hospital arrested Israel, insistent that underneath that hospital is the command and control centre for Hamas. They've released pictures as well. Israel wants to press on, doesn't it, into the southern part of Gaza?
There's no scenario that I can see where Hamas is in control of Gaza at the end of this war. Israel's intention is to dismantle their infrastructure, to find the political and military leaders of Hamas and to kill them all, to ensure that Hamas will not have the ability to continue to control the territory. Of course, if Israel decides to stay in the Gaza Strip after the war is over, whenever that will be, we will see Palestinian insurgency against Israel. That is why it is impossible to defeat the ideology and the idea of Hamas with the military. There was have to be a political plan supported by the international community and forced on Israel to recognize the state of Palestine. Isn't it about time that your own government, the UK, recognized the state of Palestine? They've been talking about a 2-state solution for 30 years. It's about time to recognize the second state and give Palestinians hope and a reason to live for Palestine and not just die for Palestine. These are the kind of things that need to happen immediately when the war is over. The Palestinian people need to take charge. They need to have reforms and hold elections to elect a leadership that represents them. The territory of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip need to be reunified as one single political state entity. And we need to move on with the peace process, with negotiations that have to be imposed on Israel and the Palestinians.
And I think the international community, there is strong resolve to have a 2-state solution, and clearly the current situation cannot be allowed to continue. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Gershon Baskin there.